Have you ever wondered why some efforts, whether it's a community, a business, or even just your personal life, seem to flourish almost effortlessly, while others just struggle despite huge campaigns and, well, tireless effort? What if the answer isn't really about bigger budgets or flashier events, but maybe something far more subtle and profoundly strategic? Today, we're taking a deep dive into an idea that's pretty counterintuitive in our, let's face it, metric-obsessed world. It's called the person of peace principle. It's essentially about how a single, really well-chosen connection can unlock doors to entire networks, entire movements even, creating impact that multiplies way beyond what you might achieve through just broad, sort of untargeted efforts.
Exactly. And our mission for this deep dive, using this fascinating source we've got called Finding the Person of Peace, is to pull out the most potent insights. We'll explore the ancient roots of this concept, get a handle on its core characteristics, and uncover practical, universally applicable ways you can identify and, crucially, engage these pivotal individuals in your own life and work. Think about shifting from just making casual acquaintances to, well, cultivating genuinely strategic partners. This deep dive should give you a framework to move from outreach that stretches your resources thin to engagement that actually multiplies your impact exponentially.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Because our source immediately challenges a fundamental assumption many of us hold that the true lever for transforming communities, or maybe launching a new initiative, isn't necessarily these huge campaigns or cutting edge tech, but rather a single, strategically identified individual. And this is where it gets really interesting, right? Because it kind of goes against so much of what we're taught about scaling impact these days. We're often told, cast a wide net. But this suggests looking for a very specific kind of connection.
It really does. What's truly fascinating here is a pattern emerging from ancient case studies, like the ones in Luke 10 and Acts 16 in the Bible. These stories seem to show that any message or movement looking for broad impact often moves fastest not through, say, public spectacle or mass advertising, but through strategic, deep relationships. Certain individuals act as these quiet relational gatekeepers. The core insight here is if you invest wisely in them, entire networks can open up with surprising ease. Many professionals, whether they're in leadership, community organizing, maybe even personal evangelism, they often make the mistake of chasing visibility over real influence. We pour resources into mass outreach, thinking wider is automatically better. But this source suggests the untapped potential lies not in what you can do alone, but in discerning where the soil is already prepared, where there's already some receptivity, and then investing relationally right there. Ignoring this just risks wasted effort and, frankly, superficial connections that never truly take root. The key insight is real leverage often sits not at the top of some formal hierarchy, but deep within the web of trusted relationships.
So it's like a kind of relational intelligence almost. And we see this playing out really clearly in those ancient stories the source highlights. Like you mentioned Luke 10. Jesus sends his disciples in pairs, telling them specifically, seek out a person of peace, that one individual whose heart and, importantly, their household were open to the message. And then later in Acts 16, there's Paul's encounter with Lydia, a successful businesswoman. These aren't just dusty old anecdotes. They seem to demonstrate the exponential impact of a single strategic relationship. It's almost like there's a hidden strategy embedded here, yeah? A powerful shortcut to engagement.
It is indeed a powerful and, like you said, often overlooked strategy. Our source calls it the hidden strategy of the kingdom, but honestly, the principles feel universal. It's not about noise and numbers, it's about the profound power of relational trust and the ripple effect that creates. Instead of just pushing a message out, you're looking for where it can be pulled in, where it'll naturally resonate and then expand on its own.
That makes so much sense. We're all just bombarded with information constantly. So finding someone who can help filter and amplify a message from within their trusted network, that seems incredibly efficient. But, okay, knowing what to look for is one thing. Actually finding them in our busy lives, that's another challenge. How do we even start to identify these individuals in our everyday context? And why is this hidden strategy actually so effective?
That's a great question. The effectiveness, I think, comes from its profound simplicity and its reliance on what's already there. Jesus gave his disciples this remarkably subtle strategic directive: identify and connect with the person of peace. They weren't told to linger in every single household or try to convince absolutely everyone. No. Their task was to discern that one receptive person who would welcome their message, genuinely connect with them, and then, in turn, open up their community. This principle is strikingly strategic. Look for fertile ground that's already prepared. And, this isn't some brand new concept invented in the New Testament. We see this pattern foreshadowed in ancient texts and historical examples again and again. Think about figures like Rahab, right? An unlikely ally in Jericho who became this critical entry point for a whole movement just by offering hospitality. Or Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, who gave essential leadership counsel that really reshaped a whole nation's structure. These aren't just stories. They highlight how powerful transformation can flow through one receptive individual who becomes a kind of conduit.
Right. And that pattern absolutely continues through the early church narratives, too. You mentioned Lydia in Philippi. Her open hospitality literally opened her city to a new way of thinking. Then there's Cornelius the centurion. His openness to a new idea unlocked a door for entire cultures to connect. Just incredible. And the Philippian jailer. His personal transformation brought his entire household along with him. So each person's openness became this doorway to an entire network. The source also mentions Zacchaeus, remember him? His changed life sparked change in his community. And the Samaritan woman at the well, her personal encounter led her whole town to a new understanding. It's this amazing chain reaction, this exponential spread, just from a single point of entry, isn't it?
It truly is. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the source highlights 3 core tenets of this kingdom logic, which, as I said, is really a universal logic for influence. First, influence is relational, not positional, meaning true influence doesn't always sit with the visibly powerful or those at the top of the org chart. Think about it. A mother, a faithful mentor, they can shape generations far more profoundly than maybe a governor or a CEO. The key insight here is real leverage often sits not at the top, but within that web of crusted relationships.
Okay, relational, not positional. Got it. What's the second one?
Second, multiplication over addition. This approach doesn't just add people one by one, it multiplies the impact. Think of it like yeast working through dough, or a tiny mustard seed growing into this huge tree. One receptive individual, like Cornelius or the Samaritan woman, becomes the catalyst, the conduit for many, many others. So this isn't just about growth, it's about exponential impact, where one connection becomes a catalyst for loads more.
Exponential impact, I like that. And the third, Ken?
Third, divine or sovereign preparation. The idea here is that effective engagement isn't about forcing connections. You can't strong-arm this. It's about discerning where the ground is already prepared, where there's an existing openness or readiness. Like Lydia, whose heart was described as being opened by the Lord, or Cornelius, who received guidance before Peter even showed up. Our task, then, is to discern where an inherent readiness or curiosity already exists, and simply align with that. The takeaway: don't try to force connections. Learn to discern where the ground is already fertile and ready for your message, your idea, whatever it is. This is really about wise investment of your time and your energy.
That's a really profound shift in mindset, isn't it? It suggests that instead of us trying to be charismatic enough or persuasive enough to sway everyone, we should become better at finding where there's already a spark, where someone is already leaning in. So, okay, how do you navigate this in today's complex world? Professional settings, urban life, global connections. The source gives us some clear qualities, right, to help us identify a person of peace in our own spheres.
Absolutely. Recognizing these individuals requires both keen observation and, well, it's a degree of empathy and cultural sensitivity. It's not just a checklist. But look for these 4 traits generally. 1, receptivity. Are they genuinely open? Open to new ideas, different perspectives, maybe even spiritual conversations? Do they welcome you personally? Can you feel them kind of lean in? That signals what we might call fertile ground. Someone whose heart or mind is already prepared somehow to receive new information or connection. Think of Lydia or Cornelius again. They were actively seeking something.
Okay, receptivity. What's number 2?
2, relational trust. They act as a gatekeeper, essentially. This person is well-connected, well-respected within their community or network, could be family, workplace, neighborhood, whatever. Their voice matters to others. They have a sphere of influence built on trust, not just popularity or noise. Rahab, Lydia, Cornelius, the Philippian jailer, they all had this quality. They were trusted relational gatekeepers who could open doors others simply couldn't.
Makes sense. Trust is key.
Okay.
And the third quality?
3, hospitality. And this doesn't just mean inviting you over for dinner, though it could. It means they create space literally or figuratively for others to gather, learn, and grow. It shows a willingness to let a new message, or even just your presence, disrupt their ordinary life a bit, to make room for something new. Think of Abraham welcoming strangers, or Lydia making her home available to Paul and his team. They're willing to invest their own social capital, their time, their space.
Hospitality of heart and maybe home. Okay, and the last one?
4, advocacy. They become natural champions or endorsers. They'll vouch for your presence, your message, whatever it is you're bringing. And in doing so, they lend you credibility and influence that you could never establish on your own, certainly not as quickly. Remember the Samaritan woman. After her encounter, she ran back to her town shouting, "Come see!" She instantly became an advocate.
That really clarifies things. But it raises an important question, especially today. We live in an era dominated by social media influencers, people with massive online followings. How does this person of the peace concept really differ from that model? I mean, what are the dangers of maybe mistaking sheer online reach for the kind of influence we're talking about here?
That's a critical distinction, and the source really emphasizes it. True influence in this context is measured not in numbers of followers or likes, but in trust, relational depth. A social media influencer might have broad reach, sure, but often those connections are quite superficial, quite fleeting. A person of peace, on the other hand, often has deep relational capital. Their authenticity, their integrity, their personal history. It gives real weight to their words, even if their actual circle seems small by comparison. This is where that seeker, someone open, and the relational gatekeeper, someone trusted, kind of converge. The danger of mistaking reach for influence. You spend all your energy, all your resources, chasing fleeting attention instead of investing in meaningful, sustainable impact. It's a totally different game.
That's a really powerful and practical distinction. Okay, so this isn't just abstract theory. It's a playbook for you, the listener. What does this all mean for your work, your professional life, maybe your personal journey? How can we actually live this principle today?
Well, the source offers some incredibly practical applications across different contexts. For instance, in ministry contexts. Instead of maybe exhausting resources chasing big crowds, ministries could prayerfully focus on identifying and really equipping these key individuals. This enhances any public outreach with genuine relational depth. It allows positive change or discipleship to spread organically rather than relying solely on programs. Then think about professional contexts. The person of peace might be that colleague who naturally champions new ideas, or who brings different people together, or just sets a positive relational tone in a team. Imagine, say, Daniel, a new manager trying to foster a more collaborative culture. Instead of just sending out a mass memo, he identifies Sarah. She's a respected, long-term employee, known for her integrity and her strong relationships across different departments. By investing time in Sarah, sharing his vision with her, empowering her to lead by example, Daniel can influence the organizational culture much more effectively at scale without needing to use his positional authority on every single person directly. Investing in people like Sarah allows leaders to influence much more broadly.
Okay, that makes it very concrete and personally for just, everyday life.
Yeah, for your personal witness or engagement, just sharing any important idea you care about. This totally reshapes how you think about it. Instead of feeling anxious, like you have to press your message onto every single acquaintance, you cultivate attentiveness. You start asking, whom has maybe a larger force, providence, fate, whatever you call it, already prepared for me to walk alongside?
Wow.
It shifts from feeling like a burden of persuasion to more of a joy of discovery and genuine connection.
A joy of discovery. I like that. It feels much less pressured. So the source also offers practical frameworks for engaging these relationships well. One powerful tool mentioned is the relationship mapping exercise. Can you walk us through that?
Of course. And it's presented as a prayerful discipline, but honestly, it's also just a very practical method anyone can use. You start by mapping out your various spheres of influence. Think about work, family, neighborhood, hobbies, any groups you're part of. Then, within each sphere, you list the names of people you know. Pretty simple so far. The key step, then, is to thoughtfully, maybe prayerfully, maybe just strategically assess their influence within that sphere and their receptivity. Receptivity to new ideas or just to you personally. You're looking for those who seem to be both open and influential. It helps you see people not just in isolation, but as part of a broader network where influence naturally flows. I remember a time, actually, when I was trying to get a new community initiative off the ground. Initially, I was just talking to everyone, trying to get buy-in broadly. It was exhausting. But when I actually sat down and did a quick relationship map, I realized I probably needed to focus on 3 specific individuals. They weren't the most visible leaders, but they were deeply trusted by different subgroups within the community. By partnering with them, getting their input and support first, the initiative gained traction far faster than if I'd just kept trying to push it out broadly myself. This exercise helps you see how, natural forces or maybe even divine ones might already be working through others to prepare the way.
That sounds incredibly strategic, actually. It gives you a clear, actionable path instead of just this general idea of find someone influential. And to help you discern if you've really found a person of peace, the source suggests 5 powerful, insightful questions. Not like an interrogation, obviously, but questions you can weave naturally into conversation. The first one is, what are your core values and beliefs?
Yeah, this question is brilliant because it immediately helps you find common ground, and it assesses their openness, testing what we called their hospitality of heart. It's a bit like Paul in ancient Athens, remember? He engaged with their existing altars to an unknown god. It helps you find a bridge for deeper conversation by acknowledging their existing worldview before maybe presenting new insights. You're looking for those points of connection first.
Good starting point. Okay, next up, what are your biggest challenges and concerns?
This one invites vulnerability, right? It genuinely tests their receptivity. Are they willing to share? And it immediately opens the door for you to potentially offer service or solutions or just empathy. You know, great leaders and influencers often meet people right at their deepest needs. Think of that ancient example again, Jesus connecting with the Samaritan woman's personal struggles before offering her this profound message. It just moves the conversation way beyond the superficial small talk.
Practical and connecting. The third question to consider. Who do you trust and respect in your community or network?
This question is a masterstroke, I think, because it directly helps you uncover their relational map. It helps you identify other potential gatekeepers or influencers within their circle. Remember how in ancient times people like Barnabas vouched for Paul and Cornelius was highly respected by everyone? That opened doors for the message to spread. This question shows you who holds genuine relational currency in their world. It's like getting a peek at their internal social network.
That's clever. Okay, the fourth question for discernment. What are you passionate about?
This helps identify their motivations, what really drives them, and it signals areas of openness, creating natural bridges for connection. Paul leveraged the Athenians' passion for spirituality, remember? Understanding what truly drives someone helps you tailor your approach, discover shared interests. It just makes the relationship feel much more organic and less, transactional.
Finding that common spark.
Right.
And finally, a big one. What is your understanding of the world and the purpose of life?
Yeah, this is a window into their deepest framework of meaning, their whole worldview. The ancient writer of Ecclesiastes observed that we all seem to have this longing for eternity, this search for ultimate significance baked into us. This question gently taps into that universal human search for meaning and purpose, that deep-seated desire we all have to understand our place in the grand scheme of things. And of course, when asking any of these questions, the key is genuine curiosity. Listen without judgment. Follow your intuition, those little nudges that seem to guide you toward a deeper connection. It's an art, not just a science.
This whole deep dive into the person of peace principle, it really reveals a kind of strategic beauty in its simplicity, doesn't it? It challenges so many of our modern assumptions about growth, leadership, success, reminding us that transformation often begins not with those mass campaigns, but with quiet relational depth. The power of this approach lies in its ability to multiply impact. Like that single seed growing into a great tree, or a tiny bit of leaven transforming a whole batch of dough. It's subtle, often hidden, but potentially unstoppable.
So maybe ask yourself this. What if the future of your influence, your project, your ministry, your impact, what if it doesn't hinge on reaching more people, but on discerning the right people? What if, in your crowded professional or personal room, you stopped trying to just outshout the noise, and instead you intentionally sought out that one heart, that one mind that seems prepared to receive and carry your message forward, the person of peace? What kind of wildfire could that ignite in your own sphere of influence? Just think about that.
The path seems to begin with seeing people not just as targets to be convinced, but as these key nodes in a network of possibility. People already positioned, perhaps, to amplify a message. So the question for you is, are you ready to discern, engage, and empower the people who can truly turn opportunity into lasting, multiplying impact?